Welcome to a watercolor tutorial. My name is Kenzie and this picture just screams Halloween, and that was the vibe that I was going for, and I really hope that you guys enjoy painting this with me. This one was probably my favorite out of the series, so let's jump in and get started. Over here, my size 8, 4, and 12 brush. I like these sizes and I use them the most. I also have this oval mop brush. I really like to cover large areas with this brush. I also have 2 old brushes accessible to me at all times for when I'm using this. This is called masking fluid. So you put this down, you let it dry, and then you're able to paint over top. But this has the potential of ruining your brushes, which is why I have some old brushes. I also have 2 cups, one for cool colors, one for warm colors. I have right here my Winsor Newton palette, and I like to color mix on this tray from Amazon. And I just like to use painter tapes from Dollarama for the size. I feel like it doesn't rip my paper, and it comes off really well, and it does a really good job at not letting the paint bleed through. I also like to use Dr. Phil Martin's Bleed Proof White. This is really good at just sitting on top and giving me a really bright and pigmented white, so I use this quite often. I have a dryer hair. This really helps speed up the process between my layers, so I definitely recommend having this. All right, so let's get started on our bird. I'm gonna mix up a really nice wash of a sandy color, so I'm gonna mix in here my really light brown color with a hint of gray. And I'm gonna come in now and just fill in my skeleton's eye. Around here. So I'll be looking at my reference photo the entire time to kind of make sure I'm capturing exactly where these shadows need to be. So I can see, according to my reference photo, I have a nice shadow right here. So I'm gonna come in and cover this. And you'll see here I have a harsh line. So I'm gonna use my smaller size 4 brush, and I'm gonna try to pick up as much as this as possible. And you saw I just used the very edge of the line in here, and I just blended this out with water. So now I have a really nice soft blend. With the eyeball, if I want it to just be a little bit darker, since it's still wet, I can come in and touch it with some darkness, and you'll see it just starts to kind of blend, which is exactly what I want. I may have let this side sit a little bit too long, so if you ever find that you have some harsh lines, again, just touch it with some water, touch the edges, and it will just start to blend really nicely together. And I'm going to repeat what I just did. So coming really close to the line right here, this one already seems to be that much drier. So you'll see now I have a really harsh line. I don't like my harsh line, so I'm going to go in and just touch this edge and blend it out. Okay, so I also see I have quite a bit of shadow right here around the eyeball. I have a harsh line, so I'm going to come in and try to blend it out like this. I also see I've got some colors right around here. So I'm going to come in and blend it out, these lines. And then you'll see a little triangle area on the nose. I tried to make it a little bit easier for you guys. So just make sure you're coming in here, filling in this area. If you're not loving your harsh lines, just pick up some water with your other brush and blend it out. Inside my nose, it's this color. And I can go in, touch it with. So when I'm touching this wet surface with my brown paint right there, this is called the wet on wet technique. My page was already wet. I just touched it with some wet paint. And this is how we create really soft, nice blends with watercolors using that technique that I just used. Okay, so underneath my skeleton right here, I see that we've got a nice shadow. So I'm gonna come in, bring out that color, blending it out. Right here within this jaw part, all of this is going to be that color. I'm not going to bother blending that. I'm just going to leave it. All under here should be shadowed really nicely. And right here as well. Try to blend this part out. So to make this skeleton look really nice, it's all about just taking your time and making sure that your lines are softly blending together. So just touching the edge, using water to start blending it out. Okay, so I'm picking up a little bit of a grayish color now, and I'm gonna go in and add more gray. But before I can move on, I wanna make sure that everything on here is dry. Okay, so this would be technically my first layer for my skeleton, and we're gonna go in now with another layer, but this time I'm gonna mix in a little bit more gray to this brownie color. And because this is already dry, this color that I have here on my brush is automatically gonna sit on top and make the layer underneath that much darker. But the key with layering with watercolor is to make sure that you leave that first color down to shine through. So you'll see here, I'm not going to completely cover absolutely everything, or if I am, this is going to make it that much darker. Okay, so I'm looking around my reference photo, looking for some shadows. I see that we've got a nice shadow up here on the head. Grabbing my water, trying to blend out the lines. I've got some nice shadows underneath the bird and the lantern. So again, blending this out with water. Coming around over top of the eye socket to give that a little bit of a 3D effect. It's not flat to the page. So right where my ink mark line is right here, I want that to be darker. Than the rest of it. So I'm just going in over top, making sure that part is darker as well. And then you'll see another little line right here. That's to indicate this part is to be a little bit darker as well. Trying to blend out my lines. See a line right here as well for the top of the nose. I'm going in with my gray and blending it out. We're just giving the nose here a little bit of a shape. So right under here, as well. And then right underneath the nose, it's a little bit darker as well. And then inside, it's a bit darker, following the line over. And then inside my nose, I can add a little bit more depth to it as well, using the exact same color, but because my layer underneath it is more orangey, it's not as dark or the same color that I'm using here, which is what we want as well. So then I'm going to shadow right under here. And then right on top of this Cupid's, I'm going to create more of a line right here as well. And then in this little corner right here, it's automatically going to be darker than the rest of it. There's a shadow right underneath kind of where the lip would be. We're going to go in and shadow right underneath it. All right, so switching over to around the mouth, I'm gonna go in between the teeth with a grayish color and just above it, just to outline the shape of the teeth. So I'm following my ink marks all the way around with just a light wash of gray, and then we'll come back in and add more layers. So now I'm going to go in with a little sandy color, and I'm going to touch different spots of the teeth to give it some shadows and to make it look as though it's curved. And remembering any harsh lines you can just smooth out with water, as we've been doing this whole time. Okay, I'm gonna dry this so I can do a third layer. And I'm going in now with a gray, shadowing right underneath the teeth where the teeth would meet, and then the sides again, just different points. Trying to blend it out if it's just too harsh of a line. And this will definitely just make the teeth pop. Right under here, it's a lot darker than this area right here. So I'm gonna make sure I'm shadowing this corner a good amount. I'm gonna go underneath this lip area again and give it a little bit more pop. And then I'm just gonna go underneath all of this with just a wash of a nice tan color. So on the cheekbone, there seems to be a bit of some shadows right here. And under the eye. Okay, I'm going to use a little bit more of a darker black, or gray I should say, for my shadowing now. This will be like my final layer. Making sure I'm blending any harsh lines. Going inside the eyes. Kind of give it that 3D effect. And I want to follow around the eye socket as well. Just blend this out just a hair. So I don't like that my ink marks are showing, so I'm going to go in with a little bit of a darker wash here and go around the edges. And then I'm going to try to blend this out just a hair. just like this. And now you'll see that my ink marks are gone by simply just going over it a little bit. So I'm going to do this all the way around my skeleton. And now right underneath the bird, I want to just make it darker, because this is where there would be a shadow where the bird's resting. Add a little bit more like of a pinkish color to the inside of my skeleton eye socket. And inside the nose just a little bit. Okay, so back to the teeth. I just want to give it a little bit more of something here, right above it. Okay, so we can come back and add any fine details that we might need to. So for our bird, I'm gonna mix a nice gray and a bit of indigo, because I don't want this bird just to be pure black. And this will be the undertone for what the bird will be like. So I'm gonna start around the chest by just putting this indigo gray wash down first. And I'm going to just work on the belly. And I'm going to dry this. I'm going to do the beak area now. And the beak kind of comes along like this, and then right around here. So I'm going to dry this now. And then right underneath, around here, it is a lot darker than the rest. So I'm going to dry this. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to go in and fill the rest of my body, or my bird's body. And you'll notice here I didn't go too dark. I'm going around my eyes. Bringing this all the way down. Okay, so I can go in now with that darker color and I'm going to start doing my layers. So I can go in and I'm just using the very tip of my brush. I'm doing darker streaks on the belly. Just like this. And you'll see how I'm leaving some gaps. This will create some depth and dimension to make sure you're not absolutely covering everything. Continuing this all the way down on this little tail part. And I can let this dry. And then I can just repeat a few times. Making sure I'm leaving both layer 1 and layer 2 to shine through. This right here would be layer 3. And I can go in as well and I can put my first layer down on my little feet. And I want to go pretty light. I don't want to go too dark. So I'm just going to use my smaller brush and use the paint that's already down to do the rest of the little feet right here. And the streaks I just did right here, I'm going to continue and do it up here as well, the beak. So jumping around just a little bit more, I want to add a little bit more depth to the skeleton. So I'm going in now with a gray. I'm going to shadow it just a little bit. So just getting water on my brush, spreading this out, just like this. So adding more shadows here on the nose as well. And I want to leave the inside of this area light. So I'm just smoothing out my lines right here. Okay, I'm gonna dry this really quickly so that I don't smudge anything so far. I'll just lift up a little bit more right here. And here I want to add more shadow. Break up this line. Okay, I'm going to dry this really quickly. Okay, so now I'm going to go in between the teeth once more, just to really have them stand out that much more. Okay, so switching back over to my bigger brush, mixing up a little bit more indigo with my gray color. So when I'm doing my brush strokes here, I'm using the very tip of my brush, and I'm going to be leaving white space, but obviously there's a layer underneath, but I'm not completely covering everything. And I'm going to come in with a variation of different shades. So I'm switching over to my size 4 brush, and I'm gonna create little U shapes. I'm gonna start off small and spaced out, and then as we go further down, they'll start to be larger and not quite as many. So right here, we'll see, start to space them out larger. And these are to mimic some feathers. Okay. Okay, so I want to get the eyes done. That way it kind of feels more like a completed look to it. So I want to keep in mind here that I don't want to completely cover everything because the eye has a white part in the middle. So I'm going in with my size 4 brush. I'm leaving a little shine to the eye, covering it with a pretty dark black. And just doing little lines around it to kind of signify the outer part of the eye, just like that. So I can go with my size 4 brush as well, and I can kind of do little flicks. And I don't want to do as much because I do want there to be some contrast here in some light areas. And right here should be darker. So I can go in now and add some fine lines for the hair. I can go in and use a lot of pigment right here for the crow's mouth. And this part I'm just going to blend in a bit. And do some flicks. And this part is darker as well, so I'm going to go in here with the darker black and do some more fine lines. Okay, so for the stomach area is darker than the rest of it, so I can go in now with a more pigmented black, and I can do more darker flicks for the stomach. And I'm using now my size 12 brush to go in and do this. Especially right here, there seems to be a darker part right here that goes all the way down. Okay, so for the feet, right in here, is the darkest part of these. And then right in here, I don't know why, but I want to call these tassels. And then right here, there's a bit of a shadow too. And then to be honest, you can't really see much of what's going on this leg. So I'm just gonna fill it in a bit dark. Like that. Okay, so there is definitely some fine details. So I'm gonna go in and leave a bit of white space as I go. So right here, there's a bit of white space. And I'm gonna work my way up and leave some areas for white space, just small little lines. Because I've already painted the under part gray, it doesn't look white. So this is just adding another layer to the feet. More water here. And then I'm gonna just cover part of it right here, the darker gray. I kind of messed up on this middle one, so I'm gonna be lifting up some of the paint. I have to do it again. So I think just kind of leaving some just little spots every now and again to kind of represent the little shine in its skin. I'm just doing little wiggle lines going all the way up. Again, just like leaving some space. Little fine details here. And then right here, it's a little bit darker than the rest of it. And I'm just gonna do a really thin coat of black over top there, right here. For the feet, okay, so moving back to my bird, I want under here to be darker, or I guess on top to be darker. And then right under here to be darker too. The more layers I put down, the better. Okay, so towards this area right here, I want it to be darker. So I just need to add a bit more layers. Back here, and just the gray. I want it to be darker that much more again. For the back, I'm going to start to do little layers on the inside. To make these pop. So going in underneath, blending it out. So all under it looks a bit darker. Adding a bit of depth. So see my oval part right here, I'm going under it using water and I'm dragging it down just a bit. Going under my little U shape right here. Oh, I'm going to use a different brush. And I'm going to drag it down. Ah! I almost just dropped my brush on the floor. Okay, so right here as well. And right here. Do you see how my little bird's starting to kind of come to life? I hope yours is as well. Just have patience, lots of layers. My lantern. So my lantern is also black. So just like we did before, I'm going to go in with kind of a grayish color, trying to stay in lines as much as possible. And I'm going to start on this side and work my way towards the middle, and I'm going to start to have it fade into like a more wash of a gray by just using water. And having this side be darker. Okay, because it's wet, this is able to kind of blend and bleed And I'm gonna let this dry before I work on this little triangle area. So because this side is already darker just based on the shadows, I'm going in with a more pigmented black right off the gate. Going all the way down. And I'm still using my size 4 brush for this. It's a lot of little details. I want it to be really crisp line. There we go. I'm just going in and adding a little bit of detail towards the bottom here with some lines. Okay. And then this chain goes in like this, and then down. And then I'll do this part of the chain in a minute. Okay, so this part right here is pretty dark, so I'm going in with my darker black. Okay, so I'm gonna dry this so I can add a little bit more depth and layers to it. Okay, so this part right here is gonna be darker. And this part right here. So now I'm gonna go in and fill in the background, like right here. I'd say with a more softer gray color. And because I've already gone in and done my layers, despite this already being black, it will stand out a bit. Because if I touch the edges right here, it becomes a line. Here a little bit darker. Yeah, I want to do that right here. Yeah, I think that part. Now it looks better. I'm like, why does this look so wonky? I just had a wonky line. And I guess around right here it would be darker. And right in here. Okay, cool. So what I'm gonna do, oh, I gotta finish this little part right here. I'm gonna do that with gray. I'm gonna touch it with some black at different spots. Okay, so I'm gonna dry this. So I have this really fun paint. It's called Dr. Phil Martin's Bleed Proof White, and I am obsessed with it because it doesn't matter what I paint with, this just sits on top. So right here, if I want there to be like a more natural highlight, I can put that on my bird and it just sits on top. And it looks like a highlighted part of my bird. Do it right here. Do it right here as well. A little bit on his chest. And then I also want to put it on my little lantern at different spots. So right down the bottom, I want to add it at the top. I want to add this. And then right in here, I want to add it just to kind of break up the lines that I have going. And that just kind of broke up the black a bit. So I think for now, I feel pretty good about this painting. I don't really see anything else I want to add to it. So I hope you had fun. I hope you learned some fun tips and tricks. And feel free to share your painting with me. I would love to see it.